It's a fantastic introduction. It's the first time I've heard Data.com referred to as a fine Chardonnay. I'm going to borrow that if you don't mind. So thank you very much for having me. How many of you have seen Mark Benioff's keynote on becoming a customer company? Okay, so maybe 40% of you. What I did this morning, I've got about 15 minutes where I wanted to set up some themes and some concepts and things that we see going on in the industry. And so what I did is I took some of that material, hopefully brought it together in a logical way for a little bit of an intro and hopefully some thought-provoking ideas and concepts that really all converge around becoming a customer company. Beyond this presentation, I would really recommend, we've published this keynote that he's done on YouTube. It's a fantastic, very well put together, great customer stories, customers involved telling the stories, and it's available on YouTube. So if you got to look at the Salesforce channel on YouTube, you can watch Mark deliver a much larger version of this presentation than I will give. But basically, we want to talk a little bit this morning about what does it take to become a customer company. And that's really the theme that we have at this event that Magnet 360 has done such a great job putting on. Really quickly, I have to include this slide for some reason that says, it's important. We are a publicly traded company, so we're going to talk about where we're going in the future, things that we're working on, and it's important that you look at the products that we have today if you're making decisions around buying our products. There is a customer revolution going on. I think that really the point of this presentation is to try to take multiple things that we probably all sense that are going on and try to put some thoughts around how all these converge on a customer. I'm going to touch on 6 or 7 huge topics that you could probably spend 3 or 4 days at a conference on any one of these topics and go really deep and be really interested. What I want to do is talk about why these topics are important to a very important person to all of us, which is your customer. Why is the customer impacted by these trends? So Peter mentioned the connectivity of products, the connectivity of the platform, and that's really driving a lot of this new model with customers. I think Peter's setup on the old way that customers followed the rules is exactly correct. It used to be we had very specific channels to do very specific things with customers. And now we exist in a world of connected things, and those connected things don't follow all of those old rules. I really enjoyed the analogy or the story on OnStar. I actually worked on the initial OnStar project when I was at EDS. I worked on the General Motors account, and we were building OnStar. And there was this interesting moment in the project where this conversation happened about why is General Motors building a button in the car that connects the customer to General Motors? That button should connect the customer to the dealer. The dealer owns the customer. That's the way the rules are supposed to work. We had all these conversations about how that's not the way the market's going, and General Motors needs to have a connection with these customers. And it was at a time where GM was really struggling, and being a native of Detroit, that's an important point in time for all of us from that area, and I think GM's doing a lot better. But it was that moment of crisis that finally enabled General Motors to say, no, we as a brand have to start connecting with our customers. And they kind of knew this inherently because of the problems they were coming up with, but it really speaks volumes to those old models. So there's this Internet of Things now, connected devices, connected cars. The phone is really becoming the remote control to connect all of these things. And the question is, how are you involved in that ecosystem, whether it's your products, your customers, your partners? And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. If you look at the time frame of what we've done in IT, and I know there's a lot of people who are from an IT background here in the room, we've also gone through this similar kind of rule-based structure model, right? We used to have mainframes and back office systems, and they were run very rigidly, and they did specific processes, and then we put computers on everybody's desks, and we started to become more collaborative, and some of those rules started breaking down. Then there was really the breakthrough with cloud computing that made these tools more ubiquitous and more available to people. And then we had mobile computing, which gave these tools to people in more places and gave these tools to more people. And what we've really got to now is a social revolution. And I want to be very clear about one thing, which is when we talk about a social revolution, we don't just mean that people are able to be on Facebook or that people can have a conversation about social type things. What I mean is that these things are interacting with each other. It's become, again, about people and relationships and the vehicle for getting things done. And that's really what the social revolution is about. And we've started to talk about this as a customer revolution. All of these things converge on a customer revolution. I'm going to talk through these trends, but all of them come down to there are new ways to connect with your customers. And I would argue if you're not connecting with your customer in these ways, your competitors will be, and soon they won't be your customers. These are essentially non-optional, to take Peter's urgency here. These are things that are happening, and these are multiple major trends that are all converging on a customer revolution. The first one of these is the social revolution. There are over 4 billion people today involved in social networks, having conversations. This is an amazing shift in how people communicate. But one of the things that I think people often overlook or try to simplify is to try to make this about just our personal lives. This idea that I'm on Facebook to share pictures of my kids and talk to my family, and all those things are wonderful. But every day, over 150 million conversations, not individual posts, 150 million conversations happen about products and companies. 150 million. And that is growing up exponentially every month. This is happening, and it's happening about companies, it's happening about products, it's happening about every brand in this room. Even if you think you're a relatively small company in a relatively niche market, I guarantee you your customers are finding each other on these networks, and they are talking about you. And the question is, do you want to talk with them? It's also happening at an amazing speed because of the mobile revolution. Right? We look around the room. This is happening, right? This is not a surprise. But what this means is that the availability of these conversations is instant. People can do it as a reaction. I can have a bad customer service moment at a desk, right? Avis was the example Peter used. I could walk into Avis, have a bad customer experience, turn around, in a minute later, start a conversation about that interaction. The mobile revolution isn't just about convenience, it's about ubiquity. It means that these moments and conversations happen in an instant. And it means anyone can have these conversations. People don't go home and cool off, right? They do it now. They do it right then. It also means that they're smarter because of it. When I walk into a store and I want to buy something, even if I see something on the shelf that I want to buy, an impulse purchase, I pull up my phone and I do 5 minutes of research right there while standing at it. And companies are fighting this. A lot of researchers have started making the barcodes smaller and smaller, right? Their goal is they're trying to limit your ability to do this. And it's interesting, some retailers have now started to embrace this, and they're trying to be mobile-friendly retailers, and they're trying to give you an experience that says, come in and we will have people help you learn about the products, and they're putting larger scan codes there. And what they're doing is they're directing you to advocacy sites that they don't own or operate that talk about these products. And their goal is to say, maybe I look at this product, and that's the one I think I want to buy on an impulse, but when I start to do my research, it suggests 1 or 2 others. But if they're a large enough retailer, maybe those products are available too. And they can turn that experience into a sale as opposed to a customer walking away. But this means information is available to anyone and everyone at a moment's notice at their fingertips wherever they are. And a lot of that information will be information that you do not own or control. It's a big data revolution. I noticed a couple of the tables here about big data. I'm a data guy. I love data, but there's a lot of it. And it's going to get to be a lot more. GE, for example, has connected their engines, their airplane engines, into our application platform to collaborate on service. They collect billions of data points a second on the engines in their fleet. And out of that, they derive transactions that tell them what is needed to provide a better customer service. But this big data is about how do you scale your organization to deal with the magnitude of this information. We had a very interesting conversation earlier today where we were talking about customer engagement. And the reality is, if there's 150 million conversations going on social channels and people are doing it in real time and they're expecting real-time interaction, right? If I'm on my mobile device, I walk away from that counter and I complain, the clock starts, right? Here's a big data problem for you. How do you look at this sea of everything that's going on every social network and out of all of that find out what's relevant to you in your company? How do you route that to the right person and how do you empower them to do something about it, right? And this is where communities come in. With all this data and so much interaction, how do you foster the ability to connect people together to have these conversations and participate in them yourself? Communities are amazing concepts. The idea that customer groups will form, prospect groups will form, partner groups will form, and you have an option to either join, participate, or facilitate those. And even if you join, participate, and facilitate those, there will be many of these. Some will be on your platform, some will be on other people's platform. But people are already self-organizing around solving problems. Those might be problems that you're in the market to solve. They might be talking about your products as part of those solutions. And the question is, are you participating? Are you doing this both in public and private places and giving people a vehicle to interact with you? Right? One of the most powerful things you can do in a sales cycle these days is have strong advocates that are participating willingly on their own behalf, oftentimes because they want that connection. Right? When I talk to customers and they say, I want to be part of your customer advisory board, I want to be part of your reference program, a lot of what they're looking for is the interaction with other people that are doing the same things they're doing and solving the same problems that they're solving. And that builds a very powerful community, and that is one of the biggest assets that you can be driving it as a company today. It's an apps revolution. Again, these things are all happening at once. Social, mobile, data, communities. And a lot of where this is happening is in apps. This is where your customers are today. Think of a lot of the interactions you have with some of the biggest brands you deal with. Right? I travel a lot with my role. A lot of the interaction I have in the travel industry, whether it's car rentals, hotels, airlines, car services, I have those interactions through apps. Those are no longer interactions where I'm going to a desk and dealing with a human being. And the challenge for organizations is because this is all real time and it's happening and we're trying to build this brand engagement, the relationship that you have to your customers will often be through these applications. Can you really solve problems through these applications? Can you provide them the information that they need? Can you be flexible with these apps? Right? It is no longer enough to say, hey, congratulations, we built an app, we pushed it out into a couple of app stores, and 24 months later, we're going to go back and make some updates. Right? That's not the world we live in. Right? As you roll out new features, new capabilities, new product lines, as you address issues that are in the marketplace, your apps need to be flexible, you need to be able to update them, you need to be able to push them out to your customers and provide them the experience that they want to have with your brand. This is all fueled by a cloud revolution. The revolutions we've been talking about to this point are not things that you are going to build in your data center and ship to your customers. It just isn't. That's not where they are. That's not where the action's at. That's not where the conversations are taking place. It's not where the data is sitting. It's not where the apps are sitting. The only thing that will allow you to do this is the cloud. You have to move your applications, your touch points, your customer interactions, your communities, and importantly, your employees. You, as a company, have to be in the cloud. You have to be there to meet them in this conversation that's about your brand, your services, and your products. And what this all really comes down to, and if there's one point you take away from all of this, the most important revolution that's going on in the marketplace today with your customers, with our customers, it's around trust. People want to have these kind of real-time, open and honest conversations, dialogues, and interactions with your company. And they want to do that based on a foundation of trust. All these trends lead to a more open set of conversations, more conversations. And it's about earning customer trust. It's about creating that value. And I'll give you a very simple story. I experienced this over just 2 weekends ago. I had a family member in town, and we were trying to get a car rental sorted out. And they had a problem where the car rental they had booked through a travel service, and they put them to a location that wasn't open. And we spent all this time calling call centers that weren't open on the weekend and finding locked doors. And dealing with this company was next to impossible until you walked up to a desk and found a person at the airport who said, we didn't create this problem. None of this was something that they had done there, but they said, I can help you fix this. I'm not supposed to, but I can help you fix this, right? That human interaction builds trust. Very often, if you look at the systems we've built over the last 2 decades to automate our businesses, we've put infrastructure in place that is the opposite of building trust. It's about building process. Dealing with your company cannot be like going to the DMV. In fact, a lot of DMVs today have been largely made more customer friendly than a lot of the business processes that we roll out in the private sector to our customers. So you have to build a set of capabilities, apps, infrastructure, and most importantly, empowering the people in your organization to build relationships on equal terms with you in the cloud where these customers are, on the platforms and in the apps that they want, and that will be your platform for engagement. And as Peter said, customers will let you know if you are not doing this correctly. The important thing is to listen and respond. Agility to interact with your customers and respond is more important than the strategy plan you have for executing your current business model. When you have trust with your customers, they're actually quite forgiving. You can make missteps in a trusted relationship if you can react quickly and be open and say, maybe that's not what we should have done. Let's react and do something differently. This is how companies will sustain themselves in the next decade. Will be based on the relationships and the trust that they build between their brand and their customers. And you'll often hear brand people talking about how the customers own the brand now. To me, that's what trust means, right? We had a video that was part of the presentation that I highlighted earlier that Mark did outlining the customer company from Coca-Cola. And there's this great moment in the video where the CMO for Coca-Cola said, we made this mistake in the 80s where we thought we owned our brand. And our customers quickly informed us that we don't own our brand, they own our brand. we're servicing that brand. We're servicing that experience that they expect to get from Coca-Cola. And it changed the entire way they think about their company. And they're one of the leaders in this space. Is anybody a Facebook fan of Coca-Cola? The odds are actually pretty decent that several of us are. They have over 50 million fans on Facebook. And they engage with that fan community every day. They have tons and tons of people in the company that are empowered to participate with their customers. This is not 3 people that are trained in a social command center that deal with Facebook. This is part of how they've changed their company to say, we have 50 million customers on this channel that love our brand, and we need our employees, many of our employees who were never considered customer-facing before, to participate in that conversation with those customers. So I would say the premise here is that companies, in many cases, are disconnected from their customers in this new world. And importantly, oftentimes your employees are not. Employees are on these social networks. Your partners are on these networks. Employees have apps. Your partners have apps. In many cases, you built apps for your products and you put them into the cloud. But the question to ask yourself is our company participating in this? Have we really thought about what does it mean to be a customer company? If you look at your processes, all of your processes, are they open to your customer? Do they connect with your customer? Do they seek input from your customer? Do they respond to your customer? That's what being a customer company is about. It's not just taking a few employees and saying, hey, there's noise over there, let's go participate on this channel. It's saying, is our company really engaged with our customer in a real and meaningful way at scale across everything that we do, including our most important processes, with these new revolutions in mind? So how do you become a customer company? The first thing is really thinking about 4 main areas, and this is a big part of how we've thought through our strategy of connecting with our customers. The first is saying, am I connected with my customer on the channels and places and on the terms that my customer wants to be connected? It's also thinking about your employees. And this isn't just, although it is important, are your employees connected to each other and are they empowered? It's, are your employees connected to your customers? Right? It's breaking down those barriers so that someone can respond. When something comes in on Twitter and somebody reads that, this is not a, okay, that's a problem, let's put that in a workflow, let's route it over to a committee that will think about a response, and then we'll run an approval up the chain, and 3 weeks later we will respond on Twitter. Right? It's over at that point. This is saying, are your employees really connected into these processes? It's your partners. Right? Your partners are a big part of your brand. Today's a great demonstration of that. Fantastic event. A couple partners coming together and working together to put this event together. Your partners are part of this process. So are your partners connected to your employees, your customers, connected to your processes, connected to what your company is and what your company does? And perhaps the biggest accelerator we will see of this over the next couple of years is connected products. Peter talked about at the Consumer Electronics Show, you know, it's amazing, almost every booth, the iPhone was the connector to whatever the product was. It was like somebody had told everybody the year before, connect all your products to the iPhone. Everybody showed up the following year and they had done that. Any booth you went to, you could control your refrigerator, your front door, your camera, your car. Everything was, your remote control was your phone. And Mark asked the right question at the event. Is your company connected to your customer as part of that process? Customer support, partners, other customers, employees, are they engaged in that process, or you have merely hooked 2 machines together? And as we bring more and more of these products, whether they're services or consumer products or devices, into this connected model, it will only accelerate these other activities. So my last slide, I wanted to leave the group with some things to think about. Again, we're just trying to tee up some conversations to have throughout the day. The keynotes will talk about these further. The Birds of a Feather lunch conversations will talk about these things. The keynote and breakouts will talk about these things. But how do you market to your customers when they are everywhere and in real time? How do you sell as a team to your customer? And keep in mind that your team is your employees, your partners, and probably your existing customers, because they're going to be part of that process. How do you service customers when they're everywhere and they're in real time? Right? This is no longer detach the form, fill out your complaint, send it in, 6 to 8 weeks later we'll mail you back as long as you put a postage stamp envelope in the package with it. Right? This is real time, and this again is not just your customer support people. This is really important. And many of you experience this with Salesforce. When you call Salesforce with a really difficult technical problem, one of the first things we do is get an engineer involved who actually participates in that conversation. 3 years ago, that was a novel concept. Those were people that did it, as Peter said, they didn't talk to customers, right? So this is servicing with the entire company focused on service. How do you build a customer platform? All this activity is going on. What's your customer platform and how you engage in all these different activities? From feedback to listening to social channel engagement to marketing to selling to servicing. What's your customer platform? And if you don't know the answer to that, maybe that's your biggest takeaway today. What's my customer platform? How am I changing the way our company works with our customers? To Peter's point about IT now being responsible for bringing these strategic objectives up in the organization and to the board, that's a great question for your board. If a lot of this today doesn't resonate with how you're running your business today or how you feel the business that you're part of is being run, is to say, what's our customer platform? Right? How are we engaging our customers? And then how do you transform the way you work? How do you go from these monolithic processes, these command and control structures, but really change the organization? How do you say as a company, our interaction with our customers is the most important thing that we do, and it's what creates the most value, and how do we empower our organization to do that? And I would think of that story about the car rental company when you think about what that really means. Because what a lot of people tell me is, I feel like I work with a lot of really nice people. I feel like it's a really great company, but I don't feel like our interactions with our customers reflect that. And that's what this problem is. That's where we've built processes and systems trying to be efficient and not engaging, right? I worked at a company one time, a small company, where we measured the call center people on calls closed. So a lot of calls went like, we don't do that, can I close this, right? That's not a really good outcome, but it was exactly what we were trying to accomplish, apparently, with how we were telling people they would be rewarded and what we were trying to accomplish. So really think about the way you work, right? Is what you do and the interactions that you have driving at becoming a customer company.